talked to more FBI people in the last 4 days than I did in the prior 4 years. As John has described it accurately, it is a place in utter disarray right now. People are worried about, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to support my family? If I lose, if you're anywhere in the middle of that career, not close to retirement, if you get fired, you're done. That's the end of your reputation, your ability to get a new job. You lose your pay, you lose your chance at a pension, you lose your health insurance. This is a moment of terror for these people. It is absolutely disgraceful that they are being put through this in the middle of some political gamesmanship or active retribution.
Pain trains are coming. Cash is a coming. Pam Bondi is coming. Happy Gulf of America Day, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in. I know the Super Bowl is on. This is like our third stream on Super Bowl Sunday. Maybe even the fourth. Next on Trump's agenda, renaming New Mexico. We fixed the Gulf of Mexico. Why do we still have a state called New Mexico? What should Trump call it, guys? Welcome, everybody. We see you all in the chat. Better than Mexico? That'd be a good new name. Better Mexico. Maybe nothing to do with Mexico at all. Just get Mexico off the name of that state. How about, I was looking at like potential names and people from the state formerly known as New Mexico. John Denver is from there. And, Denver's a nice sounding name. That could be the state name. Denver. That'd be good. Anyway, tonight on the stream, Trump tangles with the deep state. Democrats are clinging to radical transgender ideology. And Representative Lori Pohutsky has had herself spayed. I did a video on this a few days ago, but we have to revisit the topic because we got more jokes. But first, Trump continues to dismantle the deep state at a breakneck pace, and it's only going to get faster. Now Pam Bondi is in at the Attorney General's office. Not that Ed Martin was a slouch, by the way. Ed Martin, he was from Phyllis Schlafly's organization, one of the finest conservative national organizations in the country. He had actually put out the order to freeze trillions of dollars in federal grants, which there was some pushback on that. But we'll see. He was the acting Attorney General until Pam Bondi got confirmed. Now he's going to be the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., so it means to be firing a lot of people and probably prosecuting a lot more. So we shall see. But yeah, Kash Patel is coming to the FBI. That I think that's going to happen this week. We'll see. Looks like Tulsi and RFK Jr.'s confirmation is going to be moving forward. Russ Vought was confirmed. The Democrats ran a 30-hour filibuster that nobody noticed or paid any attention to. That's Alyssa Slotkin was bragging about that. Me and Gary Peters, we filibustered. No one even noticed. No, see, that's the nice thing is that whenever the Senate is filibustering and spending hours and hours and hours wasting time, the only people who notice are the U.S. senators. We don't have to sit there and watch them for 30 hours. That's what they're doing. Obviously it does slow down the process, which why didn't the Republicans kill the filibuster? Why didn't they do it? Folks, that's an important question. There's a shutdown coming in March, because the Democrats have said we're going to shut down the government over the budget. They've said this. Why is the filibuster still a thing? The Democrats said the minute they take the majority in the Senate, they're killing the filibuster. So why did Republicans allow the Democrats to kill their bills for the next 2 years or more? Why? Made no sense whatsoever, but that's what they did. Ask John Thune, I suppose. But anyway, so Pam Bondi has been confirmed, which unfortunately has kicked off another round of idiot Republicans praising John Fetterman. Because John Fetterman was the one Democrat that voted for her. Why do Republicans seem to have this idea that maybe because Pennsylvania is a swing state and Trump won Pennsylvania, that maybe they can sweet talk John Fetterman into becoming a Republican, and then they'll have a bigger majority in the U.S. Senate. That's what their plan is, I think. And that's why they're, John Fetterman, he's so brave. John Fetterman is an absolute nutcase, dirtbag, left-wing Democrat, folks. Why in the world do Republicans think they're going to court him? It is completely. This is a guy who had I'm just stunned. I'm stunned that he was allowed into the inaugural. And again, going back to this, maybe we could convert him to a Democrat. they allow John Fetterman to attend the inauguration in a hoodie and gym shorts. That is just shameful. I've seen a couple of photos of him wearing a suit and tie. He should not be allowed on the Senate floor if he's not wearing a suit and tie. I can understand the Democrats allow him to get away with dressing like a bum because it suits him, but Republicans shouldn't tolerate that disgrace of the institution of the U.S. Senate. Shame on them. Yeah, Fetterman, just the other day, he voted against a bill to require doctors to save the lives of infants who who survived an abortion. He said it was absurd. He said it was absurd to make a doctor save the life of a living baby, a living, breathing baby that survives a botched abortion. It's absurd not to allow the doctor to just murder the baby. That's what Jonathan Fetterman said. Absurd. So, just venting, folks. Just venting, because every time John Fetterman does anything Republicans like, it's John Fetterman. He's so independent and interesting, and maybe he could become a Republican someday. Yeah, right. Fetterman himself actually said he would be the worst Republican. So, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But anyway, so the latest news, and of course, I'm sure you guys have been following. A lot of the national news is that this federal judge has ordered Doge to cease its operations, and they've frozen out Scott Bessent, the confirmed Treasury Secretary from the Department of the Treasury. That's how insane this order is. So let me put this up on the screen here. This is as good a summary as any. Let me zoom in here. This is from Amuse, a pretty big Twitter account. And here's this person's summary. In an egregious and unconstitutional assault on executive authority, Judge Paul Engelmeyer has unilaterally forbidden all of Trump's political appointees, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, from accessing Treasury Department data. This ruling, concocted without legal precedent or constitutional justification, is nothing short of judicial sabotage. Worse, it was issued ex parte, which means the Trump administration lawyers weren't even given notice, weren't allowed to argue, and weren't even in the room when the judge heard the issue. Only Democrat attorneys general were heard, ensuring a predetermined outcome. This order is legally indefensible. He cites no statutory basis because none exists. He offers no constitutional rationale because the Constitution directly contradicts him. Instead, he fabricates a fiction that the duly appointed Treasury Secretary is nothing more than a ceremonial figurehead, akin to a powerless monarch, while unelected bureaucrats who answer to no voters control the nation's finances. And this goes on for a while. I'm not going to read the whole thing word for word. But Amuse has weighed in, and as has Vice President J.D. Vance. By the way, yes, Stephanie says Fetterman's voting against Tulsi and RFK. Yes, I did hear that. But it sounds like they're going to get the votes from Republicans, and that's going to be all they'll need. So we'll be fine. Hey, Patty. Hey, Mark. Ashley Price. Good to see you guys. Mark says, thank you for doing this on Super Bowl night. I needed a break from it. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad I can be your guys' entertainment. And thanks for tuning in, because we have some stiff competition with a Super Bowl that apparently has a Trump endorsed, Michael Bay produced Secret Service recruitment ad in the program. So I can understand people would tune in for that. And yeah, we had a Plymouth Canton Republicans Club candidate forum for state chair forum and for other state vice chairs last Wednesday. I'll talk about that probably near the end of the show. But yes, and we've got an event coming up for that as well. But anyway, back to the topic here. So this is so JD Vance has posted about this too. Here's what JD Vance posted. If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. And you can see some people want to post a community note about that, which, by the way, for those who don't have the ability to rate community notes and therefore don't see like these proposed community notes, it turns out that for celebrity Republicans like JD Vance and Elon Musk, every single thing they ever post, people try to note. Every single thing. And always it's just people abusing community notes, trying to argue with them. The smallest things, like there'll be they'll make a personal statement, a political comment, and then people want to post articles disagreeing with them. That should be posted in the comments. Just complete naked abuse of the system, which people, I mean, they do get downvoted, but at some point, I don't know how the system's going to eventually filter these people out that are just constantly abusing the system. But anyway, besides the notes people, this article got tons and tons of whining in the mass media. J.D. Vance is attacking separation of powers and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, J.D. Vance is, in my humble opinion, just being awesome. That is just, and by the way, see, here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing about this. Trump's administration has been actively pushing for a confrontation at the Supreme Court on the basis that they and they alone control the executive branch, because that's all the Constitution specifies. The theory is that the totality of the executive branch has been elected by the American people, and it's Donald Trump and his subordinate J.D. Vance. And there is no career civil servant protections, because Congress can't do that because it infringes on the executive branch as a branch of government, that these judges can't just strike down anything willy-nilly. They've been itching for this. They've been provoking this confrontation. And this idiot judge just gave the Trump administration the strongest possible hand in going to the U.S. Supreme Court. Just the most egregious abuse of judicial power, that the Trump administration go in and say, it is outrageous that we would have to deal with this all the time from every lunatic Democrat federal judge. And there has to be a precedent on this right now, because they can't just obstruct and interfere with our administration unlawfully for the next 4 years. That's what's coming. So thank you, Judge Engelmeyer, for being the biggest possible idiot to give the Trump administration the best possible case before the U.S. Supreme Court. Thank you very much. Speaking of J.D. Vance, by the way, here's another story that's been in the news this week. I shouldn't say old. He's not old. He's quite young. Big Balls. Big Balls got fired and then rehired by Doge. The story, if you guys haven't heard this story, the deep state actually has this quote-unquote reporter who the Wall Street Journal hired just for the purpose of digging up dirt on Doge employees. And I think I got a story about this someplace. I'm going to find it here. Well, this is the woman, the woke journalist, Catherine Long. She, her, got to put the pronouns into the bio there. Has connections to U.S. aid, unmentioned in this particular post. Also has ties to the U.S. State Department. Ties to everyone except the CIA, basically. Yeah, Mark, that was literally the guy's handle, was Big Balls. And so all week long, you heard CNN and MSNBC talking about young Mr. Big Balls, who got canceled from Doge, from this Catherine Long story, that he made some racist remarks, I guess. Some of his coworkers are, Indian. I guess he was disparaging towards Indian people, but some of his coworkers. Yes, Stephanie says watching the MSM and Congress people to say Big Balls over and over is priceless. Yeah, CNN just couldn't stop just obsessing over Big Balls. That was what they were doing all week long. They just had big balls on the brain. But anyway, so they got the guy fired from Doge, and then they turned it around, and this is what happened. So Elon Musk puts up this poll. 78% of 385,000 people say to rehire the guy. And the people spoke, so he did. And J.D. Vance himself, Vice President Vance, this is just too fun, guys, says, here's my view. I obviously disagree with some of Elez's, I guess that's Big Balls' his real name, but I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life. We shouldn't reward journalists who try to destroy people ever. So I say bring him back. If he's a bad dude or terrible member of the team, fire him for that. And of course, this has again gotten just all kinds of priceless coverage in the media, and the message is going out, folks. This administration will not be bullied or browbeaten by these leftists. They're just all they're doing is whining and whining and whining. And meanwhile, the Trump administration is just going to go faster and faster. And it's been great. It's been great. So, yeah. But anyway, so J.D. Vance, he is going after this judge. And who was it? It was not J.D. Vance, but somebody. Was it Musk? Musk, I believe it was. Called for the judge's impeachment, which to that I say about flipping time. In fact, here's another story that came out just recently. If you haven't seen this one, a Michigan judge denied the state appeal of the 3 falsely convicted entrapped men in the Governor Whitmer FBI hoax. You'll remember several of these individuals were acquitted at trial because the jury found that they had been entrapped by the FBI, meaning the FBI committed the crime. And the actual definition of entrapment, you think entrapment means you wouldn't do the crime unless the government tricked you into doing it. But no, entrapment is even worse than the sin is even harder to prove than that. The sin is like you would have done the crime if the government didn't coerce you into doing it. So anyway, some of these defendants got found not guilty at trial because the evidence was so overwhelming, so compelling that they were set up by the FBI in perpetrating this scheme. But a few of them got a mistrial, and then the evil feds went after them in a second trial. And in this trial, the judge suppressed the evidence even more, and they were unfortunately convicted. So they filed an appeal. And here's an actual excerpt from the judge. Fox was not a member of the Watchmen. He belonged to a group called the Michigan Patriot 3%. The 3% groups were established across the country and were created by the FBI. The FBI used assets from other 3% groups in forming the Michigan 3% group. Defendants argued that this evidence was not presented at either the entrapment hearing or the jury trial, presumably because it was not. The entrapment hearing and jury trials both show that defendants raised the possibility of the FBI having created the Michigan 3% Patriots at both proceedings. At the entrapment hearing, Mr. Musico's counsel conducted cross-examination of Special Agent Impola that specifically addressed this and inquired of another witness as to who made that group at the second entrapment hearing. At the jury trial, this evidence was argued during an admissibility discussion with the court outside the presence of the jury. So the judge upheld the conviction, despite agreeing that the FBI themselves created this fake militia group to recruit and infiltrate these innocent people. To frame that, remember what that's all in the context of everything? This was to rig the 2020 election. This was to create this fear of these radical right-wingers that tried to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer to manipulate the electorate in a swing state. This is the FBI committing an act of high treason. And these people were their pawns in that game. And the judge is keeping them in prison over this. And which state representative in Michigan has moved to impeach this judge, as, by the way, any one of them can do? 0. Not one of them, folks. So keep that in mind. Whenever you want to talk about how great your state rep is or how great leadership is or whatever, not one of them has introduced an article of impeachment against this judge. Or for that matter, the judge planning to lynch Officer Christopher Schur in 2 months. Maybe one of them might want to get on that. Just saying. When we were working on the Lucas Gerhardt case, we tried to get a state rep to impeach that judge. For what crime? Wrongful imprisonment. Kidnapping, basically. Now, obviously, there's legal reasons why impeaching a judge opens a door that you might not want to open. And that, of course, is what the legal community would come right back and say is, you know what you do that's going to start impeaching your judges next. Folks, the moment they can, they will. The problem is it's not our judges that are complete derelict rogues who are letting people rot in prison in rigged trials. Our judges, if anything, are more inclined towards the prevailing winds of criminal justice reform and all the rest of that. But and things happened in the Lucas Gerhard trial. There was the COVID outbreak happened, for one thing. We were on the cusp of taking some real action about this legislatively, and then COVID happened. But anyway, it all worked out in the end. But all these people that market themselves as champions of freedom, any state house rep can file an article of impeachment against a state judge. And ultimately, what would happen? Probably leadership would kill the bill. So do it to make a statement. Lay out the argument, If any state rep was to lay out the argument against this Grand Rapids judge for charging Christopher Schur, despite the evidence proving his innocence, and lays it all out, it was clearly, unmistakably on tape an act of self-defense in which a violent suspect was fighting for control of a deadly weapon, a taser he had wrestled from the cop's hands. Submit exhibit A, B, C, D, and the judge. So the judge has the audacity to say, "Oh, it's judicial discretion. This might be up to a jury to decide." No, a jury should not be deciding complicated questions of law. The jury should be deciding questions of fact. Was the officer fighting with a violent suspect resisting arrest for control of a deadly weapon that was in the suspect's hands? Yes, he was. Okay, then it's self-defense. So I'm talking about all of these state reps that, and I know some of them pretty well, that self-market as, these great patriots that vote so conservatively. Any one of them, and some of them are in safe districts. Some of them might want to be burnishing their conservative bona fides for some reason. Might want to hurry up and get on this. Just saying. Anyway, that was kind of a long aside. Where was I? Oh yeah, we were talking about. I think we were probably exhausted. We think we probably exhausted that topic about JD Vance and these rogue judges. We'll see. We'll see if any members of Congress in the House want to try to file articles of impeachment against some of these rogue federal judges. That'd be interesting, because they weren't elected by anybody. Anyway, all this drama aside, all this federal judge stuff. The big story is the breakup of USAID. Which, by the way, I don't know why everyone's calling it USAID. Folks, you have an acronym, use it. USAID, that's what it is. What we've seen so far is just the beginning. The USAID is literally a covert arm that's been disrupting governments across the world for decades. And by the way, they haven't even barely started exposing what's going to happen as things start to shake out. Let me show you, if you haven't seen this yet. I just posted this on X today. There's a story of this guy who was in Egypt and decided to pay an unexpected visit to the USAID headquarters in Cairo. And so he goes into their fortress-like offices in Egypt. And here's the story. They bluff their way in through what they call the suicide bomber barriers. And because they looked American and they're driving a Mercedes, they let him right in. And so they go in and they enter. And the story, like he says, a sentry stood outside as I walked right past him like I were Pharaoh. And it turns out that once they eventually figure out that he's not really an American official, they're like, "Hey, I'm looking for the U.S. office. I heard you guys are being shut down. Why are you still here?" And he says, "I'm a writer investigating USAID operations. I thought I would visit here and talk to those in charge." And they quickly escorted him out. But the point being, something's still going on in there. Something is still going on. But already, just the fact that the money is being shut off is having enormous international repercussions. Because all of a sudden it turns out like all the media in Ukraine, all the independent media in Ukraine and in Russia, which of course was not independent, it was state-funded media, has fallen apart. Just to give you guys one other example, in Georgia, the country Georgia, not the state, the country Georgia had, they just had elections recently, but they recently passed a law that was the equivalent, their equivalent of what in the U.S. is called FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which we have because, we don't want foreign governments being able to covertly lobby our own government. It kind of became a thing during the first Trump administration. Remember all that? Oh, Trump is an asset of Russia and blah, blah, blah. And his people are violating FARA. They made a big stink about this. Well, our government, as it turns out, goes all over the world and covertly influences all these people. So Georgia passed this Foreign Agents Registration Act. And instantaneously, the USA, the State Department, National Endowment for Democracy, they're all agitating these protests and demonstrations against the Georgia version of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Like, picture, I mean, how surreal can this get? But this is what actually happened in Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. There's like thousands of people showing up, demonstrating and protesting. No FARA, no Foreign Agents Registration Act. We want covert agents lobbying our government. Like, how preposterous was this? And as it happened, their whole color revolution failed because the government was able to leverage that. They're like, yeah, look, folks, this put it right to them. Look at what they're doing. Why would there be thousands of young people marching in the streets of Tbilisi against the Foreign Agents Registration Act if they weren't being paid by foreign agents? And this stuff is going on all over the world all the time. And Trump is shutting this down. And what's going to happen now is, I mean, people around the world kind of like know this, that the U.S. is like this bully that's been covertly doing things. But now they're going to really know it, because they're going to start seeing all these institutions just suddenly withering and dying. And they're going to wonder, like, whoa, that's weird. You know, like the BBC is going to realize, like, hey, where's all our American funding has gone? Really? You guys got money from the Americans? The British Broadcasting Corporation got money from the Americans. Yes, it did. So strange. Heather Dow says, meanwhile, Western North Carolinians are living in tents. Yeah, that's what this is all looking to fix. This is the return of the America First agenda, and it has been awesome. Awesome. Although in other foreign affairs, a lot of questionable things have happened in this week. Mark says, to me, Trump is the greatest president, certainly in living memory. But yeah, well, this stuff is all pretty dang great, but there's some other things we got to talk about. First, we got to talk about Gaza, but first let's talk a little bit about what's going on in with respect to Russia and Ukraine. So Keith Kellogg, Trump's absolutely brilliant envoy on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, he now says he will release his peace plan later this week at the Munich Security Conference, which I can promise you is going to be god-awful. It is going to be disastrous. And why on earth Trump is allowing him to do this is completely mind-boggling. Now, how do I know that Keith Kellogg's Russia-Ukraine peace plan is going to be a retarded pile of garbage? Well, first off, he's releasing it at the Munich Security Conference in front of a bunch of Europeans. Why? Those are the people that we shouldn't even be talking to. These are the people that were provoking the war and are trying their level best to get Trump's administration sucked into it. That's what they want. NATO wants the U.S. money to keep on flowing into the war. That's what the Germans want. So why would you announce this in Munich? Also, why are you waiting? First off, why is it taking this long to have a peace plan? It's been kind of a while now, hasn't it? What's he doing? Studying the conflict? And then why not release it now? Okay. Why? Okay, you finally come up with something. Why have you not released it today? Because, people are dying every single day over there. It's kind of an urgent, pressing matter. Why not just release it as soon as you have it? Because you don't have it yet, or you're putting the finishing touches on it? Or you're going to do it when you get to Munich in front of all those European people. Then you're going to announce what your peace plan is. And again, Kellogg he doesn't understand anything about Russia, doesn't understand anything. Keith Kellogg just the other day made this remark. He said, the Russian people, the Russian government doesn't care how many Russians die in their wars. They don't care if it's 100 or 10,000 or 100,000 or 1 million. Now, the only conceivable reason why Keith Kellogg would say that is to let the Russians know what a piece of shit he is. Why would anybody say that? They don't care about their losses. That is the statement of a freak, of a morally degenerate, completely ignorant nutcase. No country on planet Earth doesn't care about their losses in war. I mean, it's true. Russia has made crazy sacrifices in World War II. They sacrificed tens of millions of Russians. But even then what's the point? What's your point, Keith? You think the Russians are so cold-blooded that they don't care about their losses in the war? Then what makes you think you have leverage over them with your idiot peace plan? It's just insane. So Trump has now said, like literally in the last 24 hours, Trump says he has spoken with Putin. He strangely says, I probably can't tell you how many times I've spoken to Putin. Okay, well, what have you gotten? I mean, we'll see. Probably these conversations have happened. But it sounds like Trump is still getting his advice from complete idiots. And he thinks that when Russia says, we're going to see this through, Trump's going to Keith Kellogg and the CIA people, and they're saying, no, don't believe that. Russia's going to collapse any day now. Their economy is really bad. They're taking terrible casualties, and we just got to keep this going a little bit longer and throw more money and weapons at the problem, and it's all going to be, and we've got leverage, which is completely insane. I mean, Trump actually does have some form of leverage over Russia, but this isn't it. The leverage is we could do business. We could negotiate a strategic framework for peace and commerce. And Russia would like that because they would like to not be in a state of permanent confrontation and conflict with America and Europe. And if Trump and Putin got together, they could say, look, we're going to form an agreement, and we are going to force the Europeans to accept it. And that would be great. Russia would probably make considerable concessions for that. But they've got people who are just on the completely wrong frame of mind at all. Meanwhile, the Green Goblin, Zelensky, has now come out and said to Trump, we will give you all of our natural resources if you'll just help us win this war. And you can have all of our rare earth materials. We know you like those rare earth materials, Trump. That's why you won Greenland, for those rare earth materials. We have lots of rare earth materials in Ukraine. Yeah, right. The other thing Zelensky says is he goes, yeah, actually, we haven't even gotten half of the military aid that you've been giving us for the past 3 years. Really? How come you didn't mention that until just now? That's a little odd, Hey, President Biden, you still owe us $50 billion. Why don't you hurry up with that right away? No, he waits till right now. And he suddenly says, actually, America, you never really gave us half of that money. It's all, or maybe you did, but we don't know where it went. Maybe your people took it. Maybe our people took it. We don't know. But the point being is just to poo-poo American aid. And the narrative crafting here is simple. Ukraine's losing the war. So the narrative has to be, the reason why they've lost the war is because we didn't give them enough. We didn't give them all the money, all the weapons in the world. And so Zelensky is trying to seduce Trump with this promise of raw materials and God knows what else. Anything he'll say, the agenda is to get Trump sucked into the war. And all Trump has to say is, this was Biden's war. I'm getting out of it. We're done here. It didn't go well. They've damaged our military. It's been a complete waste of time. It was ill-conceived. The whole point was to destroy Russia for corrupt purposes that Joe Biden's family personally profited from. Remember Hunter Biden and Burisma and USA? Hunter was all of that too. Trump could force Biden to own this, and the name of the game is, well, blame is the name of the game. And they're trying to get it to become the war that Trump lost, not the war that Biden lost. And so Trump needs to be getting us out of that war ASAP. And instead, Keith Kelly's going to come on and say, well, I got a plan here. This plan, I mean, you can tell Kellogg is not doing what you would do if you were trying to come up with some negotiation. Because what you would do is, what would happen is, first Keith Kellogg would talk to Ukrainians and he'd talk to the Russians. He'd say, well, the Ukrainians say they want this and Russians say they want that, and you go back and forth. And that's how a negotiation works, is you get the two parties talking, first through intermediaries, and then, that's how a peace agreement works. That's not what Kellogg's doing. What Kellogg is doing is he's gonna come to the Russians and say, here's what we propose. And then the Russians are gonna say, get bent. And then your plan is cooked. That's what Keith Kellogg is. Why Keith Kellogg is not a diplomat. Why on earth does Trump think he is qualified for this job? It is mind-boggling. So fingers crossed, guys. Maybe Trump knows more than we think he knows. He says he's talking to Putin, so maybe something in the future will look good. But as of now, another week goes by and there's been little to no progress, and things on the horizon don't look very good for prospects. So again, fingers crossed. So there's that. And then, of course, there is Trump's comments about turning Gaza into the Levantine Riviera. Yeah, that's right, folks. Never mind that Make America Great Again stuff. We're making Gaza great again. That's right. Flew Netanyahu out to America to sit down with him, talk about this whole wonderful, great plan. It was funny because right before this all happened, when Netanyahu flew in and Trump says we're gonna rebuild Gaza, right before that happened, I saw Ann Coulter had posted, man, this new Jared-less administration sure is awesome. Spoke too soon. Kushner's back to fuck everything up for Trump. This is his idea too, Kushner has been talking about this for a long time, at least 10 months. I think I might even have a image of that someplace. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, you guys can find it. Kushner's been talking about this idea of, turning Gaza into this beautiful place for, as Trump said, the world's people. I don't know what's going to happen to the Palestinians. He was dodging that question pretty artfully at these news conferences. But, I don't think it's going to happen, folks. Thing number one, there's 50 million tons of rubble in Gaza right now. Plus, rubble mixed in with ordnance. That's a lot of rubble to get out of Gaza. The UN estimates it was going to take them 15 years at least to clear the rubble. To clear the rubble, not to build this new paradise in Gaza. How much money do you think that's going to cost? By the way, I got another question. Because obviously, and Trump made a point about this, the land in Gaza has now been covered in rubble. It's been bombed to smithereens. The people are suffering. So what about that makes Gaza the place you'd want to develop? Well, because it's got a good climate, and it's on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Well, then why not just, if you're gonna put trillions of American dollars into this project to make Gaza great, hey, why not, if you love Israel so much, why not just develop the part of Israel that's right next to Gaza? Why not just do that? Here, look, I can put this up on the screen. Look, there's even a map of this. Look, here's Gaza, which is now covered in 50 million tons of rubble. Which is, and by the way, still one of the most densely populated places on planet Earth. I don't know if it's still true now that so many people are dead, but before the war, Gaza was more densely populated than Tokyo. Why not build your Riviera on the Levant right here? Right? Why not build it in Afridar or Ashkelon or Agamem or Ashdod or Zikkim? These places are also on the Med right there. They're right there, and they're not buried under millions of tons of rubble. Why don't you just build there? No, we're gonna build here. We're gonna build here. Now, to be fair to Trump, a lot of people have said that this is, and including people that really would know, like Alistair Cook, who's like this absolute expert on Middle East affairs. He's been a diplomat in this region for a very long time. He says the purpose of all this was to get Netanyahu under Trump's control and to say, we're going, because you might have heard Trump's subtext was, we're going to take care of Gaza as opposed to Israel. And this was Trump's way of getting Netanyahu in his pocket. Maybe that's true. But at face value, what Trump just said this week was appalling. Rashida Tlaib said, Trump just called for ethnic cleansing sitting next to someone just committed genocide. That's not wrong. I mean, he is sitting next to Netanyahu. Netanyahu gives him a Golden Pager Award. Now, I'm sure you guys heard about the pager story where Israel somehow managed to smuggle tens of thousands of pagers into Lebanon. They detonated them all. They made them ring, so then people picked them up and they blew them up. Which, if you know much about military operations, military, like Hezbollah is not just a military entity; it's also a government entity. It's like the ruling party in Lebanon. So these pagers that were imported, that were indiscriminately detonated, all in synchronized fashion, weren't just blowing up military combatants. They're just, anyone, anywhere, all over the country. So like people's limbs got blown, like innocent people's limbs got blown off. I mean, textbook definition of a war crime. Indiscriminately targeting, like no targeting whatsoever, really. You just would blow them all up at once. Now, I've heard it also said that Netanyahu and Trump actually hate each other. Trump hates Netanyahu because he stabbed him in the back when Biden, quote unquote, won the 2020 election. And Netanyahu hates Trump because of him demanding the ceasefire. So maybe that golden pager was Netanyahu's way of sending Trump a message. Certainly a cursed object. I don't know. Trump seemed to think it was, and again, maybe these guys are all just, doing one thing in front of the cameras and something else behind the scenes. But at face value, Trump's statements have made a lot of people very angry, as well they should have, because he's talking about displacing 2 million people who live in this place that has just had the crap bombed out of it. And Trump said, Trump says, Trump actually just goes and says, this place is hell. No one can live there. And he's sitting right next to the guy who made it hell. Like, what? So, anyway, so all that happened. We shall see. We shall see how it develops. And again, I hope that this is really just Trump's way of saying to Netanyahu, I don't want to have trouble in this part of the world for the rest of my presidency. Because if Trump's going to be rebuilding Gaza, it ain't going to even start until long after he's out of office, because they ain't going to clear 50 million tons of toxic rubble anytime soon. So we'll see. Anyway, moving on. It has been a wonderful week in the death of DEI. A lot of resistance coming from certain Democrat institutions, including in Michigan, where the Michigan High School Athletics Association has said they are going to ignore Trump's order and they are going to continue to allow boys to play in girls' sports. We'll see how long that lasts once the federal funding dries up. Because, and I'm not condoning that the Fed's purse strings control what should be a state issue. But, it is what it is, and Title IX does trump state laws, because Title IX protects girls. The whole point of Title IX is to protect girls' sports. And these idiots, like the Michigan High School Athletic Directors Association, whatever they're called, says, we have a conflict now between state law and our Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. By the way, I don't know why, for whatever reason, a lot of people in Michigan in politics have to always call it the Elliott Larson Act, or just Elliott Larson, which is so confusing. Like, no one cares who these politicians are that put their names in the bill. It's the Michigan Civil Rights Act. Just call it that. Then people know what you're talking about. The Civil Rights Act. Anyway, Michigan Civil Rights Act, they say it's in conflict with the federal law because Our state civil rights law says it protects sexual orientation and gender identity. Well, yeah, but it also says it protects sex, and that is clearly, so it's uncommon with itself. So there's your answer. Also, of course, the protections on sex are far more deeply rooted in that law than the newfangled, ridiculous sexual orientation or gender identity. But anyway, yeah, Michigan schools are now bragging they're going to break the law. So we'll see. It'll be like everything else the Democrats do with such amazing hypocrisy, where at the very same instant they'll attack Trump for saying, I'm not going to listen to this stupid federal judge. They'll also say, we're not going to listen to these federal, we're not going to make federal law. We're going to resist it. But there's a side story in this. I want to bring this up just because this came up this week. Nancy Mace was angling for a job in Trump's administration. She didn't get one, strangely. I wonder why that would be. But she has been reveling in the limelight of being the point person in Washington on protecting women's spaces, and she went after that transgender Democrat, the one that the woman in the chair recognized as a man when she called on him today, or not today, but earlier this week. But anyway, Nancy Mace. Here, let me put this up on the screen here. There's Trump saying, "Where's Nancy? She's something." And Trump says, "Oh, are you a believer in what we are doing, Nancy?" Nancy takes it on right from the start, right? And then Nancy said, "Would you like to say something, Nancy? Would you like to say we're doing the right thing, Nancy?" This is Nancy Mace taking all the credit for all this stuff. And by the way, as this is going on, there's all the people in the audience here that actually fought for this. Nancy, you don't need to hear the audio. Oh, look at that! Oh, she's in RoboCop beast mode. Nancy Mace is. Nancy Mace actually co-sponsored the bill to include gender identity and sexual orientation in sports. There's her on the bill right here. There's Nancy Mace. A whole almost 4 years ago, there's Nancy Mace and such sterling company as Peter Meyer and Mario Diaz-Balart, who I believe also voted to impeach Trump, as did Fred Upton, who also voted to impeach Trump, as did Adam Kinzinger, who also voted to impeach Trump. You got a lot of Democrats and Trump impeachers on this list of co-sponsors of this bill. This bill do. Bill prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Just another come lately, folks. Just another come lately. So you gotta watch out for these people that love to show up once the battle's already being won. And politicians are great at this. They're great at this. Anyway, I just want to throw that in because I saw that. And, if there's ever a case of it, that's one of the more brazen, horrific examples of a politician jumping on a bandwagon and pretending to have been there all along, like fighting from day one on this stuff, when actually she just jumped on when it became the trendy thing to do. Anyway, the other story, which I did my own video about it earlier this week, was that State Representative Lori Pohutsky, who I don't know why I keep pronouncing it Pohutsky. I don't know if it's not Pohutsky. That sounds funnier. I should call it, I think I'm going to say Pohutsky. I mean, I don't know how you pronounce her last name. Lori Pohutsky has claimed that she has actually become sterile. She underwent sterilization to avoid pregnancy during Trump's presidency, which, there's easier ways to avoid pregnancy. And some of this I was talking about in the video the other day. Yeah, Heather says I turned into South Park Meghan Markle. Yeah, that was brilliant. I think I reposted that on my feed earlier today too. Let me find that real quick because that was really good. Here, where is it? Hold on. Yeah, she again, the big if is, did she actually do this? And I would not put it past Lori Putsky, who just made that story up. Although she is now quoted in multiple places as saying she's done this. Here, Heather, I didn't see your newer one on my feed. I'm gonna have to track it down. But yeah, there's her with sterile Barbie. Nice one. Yeah, here's it's here someplace. There it is. Yeah, Heather, just the best graphics. Yeah, she wants her privacy as she's screaming and yelling about her sterilization, about her self-mutilation. Anyway, so one thing I didn't talk about in the video the other day, this is the article in the Michigan Advance, where Lori has given her statement. And this is what she said. First, she says, just under 2 weeks ago, I underwent surgery to ensure that I would never navigate a pregnancy in Trump's America. So she has clearly claimed she actually went through with this. And then she says, if you know people who are questioning how serious this is, I'm going to repeat myself for dramatic effect. And then she starts referring to herself in the third person, a sitting government official. Like this is supposed to make it any different. I'm a sitting government official who opted for a voluntary sterilization because she was uncertain she would be able to access contraception in the future. And I mean, that's like the Patty says I don't think she actually did it. She's just a crazy attention seeker. I completely agree. I don't believe she did it. More and more people are doubting this story because it doesn't make any sense. Why would you go through with it when you can just lie about it? I mean, she can get an abortion in her own privacy, and no one will be the wiser. That's what she probably figured. Pohutsky was speaking to hundreds of protesters. Someone in the comments on my video the other day said she's such a Pohuts and her husband is Kukutsky. Great one. Pohutsky was speaking to hundreds of protesters who gathered Wednesday on the lawn of the Michigan Capitol as part of the 50501 movement, which aimed to hold 50 protests in 50 states on one day. Operative word, aimed to hold 50 protests, other demonstrations around the state capitals in 6 other states. Okay, well, they didn't quite get to 50, but in Michigan, they got some people together. Matt Manick went around and got some good photos with them. These aren't Matt's photos, but he's walking around. There's Kerry Reingens, one of the more lunatic Democrats there, screaming and yelling. But anyway, so Lori Pohutsky has also been sharing her incredible bravery on her X feed, where she has gotten maybe not quite the attention she wanted. This is a newer post yesterday. The Telegraph was the first outlet to reach out to me, another USAID funded operation, to speak about my story rather than printing something sensational. Like what would they print? Your story is sensational enough for what it is. Now I'm not going to get into the paywall here because the story's behind a paywall. But there she is. I'm a Democrat politician. This is why I sterilized myself after Trump's election. And so I actually am not going to go through the paywall because this is all we got. Up until this week, this is in Britain. Up until this week, Lori Pohutsky was a little-known representative, and that's got to sting a little bit, right? Lori Pohutsky was the Speaker pro tem. Lost the majority, and she's a nobody so quick. She's a nobody again. Lori Pohutsky was a little-known representative in the Michigan State House, where she sponsored a raft of progressive legislation, including the right to kill babies, enable gender self-identification, and make June LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Wow, so stunning and brave. Anyway, so Lori Pohutsky has, she had a post on January 29th, and then ever since then, not too many more posts on her on her Twitter feed or her X feed. And so first she posts, "Oh my, it would seem that many men with profile photos of other people What does that even mean? Have read the news and are not happy with me today. So anyway, who else is excited for the new Lady Gaga album? Now, sometimes I wonder if on Twitter, X, if like it automatically puts forward to me the posts that are going to agree with me because like it knows I'm a conservative for my own posting. I wonder if you're a Democrat voter, if it feeds you, if like the top comments in the feed when you're looking at these would all be like, "Oh, Lori, you're so stunning and brave," and and not seeing the replies that I see. But yeah, all the comments are basically, laughing. There's some variety of laughing at her. They could not be more happy for you. Fully support your decision. Hope all Democrats do it. And this goes on and on and on. Yeah. So yeah, we're actually very happy for you. Either way, we're happy. Yeah, we're happy. It's a funny story. It's a great story. If it proves to be true, I'll be even happier. But then she clearly is not getting the response she wants, and then she posts the fact that so many conservative men take personal offense to the decision I made. Who? You see what she hasn't done here? What she has not done is like quote anyone. She didn't quote anybody because not a single conservative man said this at all. The fact that so many conservative men, citation needed, take personal offense just proves the point that we shouldn't assume that right is secure. And again, all the replies, how mentally ill you have to be. I mean, this is laughter. This is pity. Prima facie says, love from Australia. Looking forward to a proper investigation. Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to get one. Yeah, no conservatives taking any offense. We're cheering. We're laughing. It's sad. And at the end of the day, well, okay, assuming she actually went through with this, and I do not think that she did, but even if she did, again, Lori Pohutsky is a politician. She deserves no pity because this would still be a political stunt. Because if it wasn't, she wouldn't have broadcast, all about it. But TDS is a real mental illness, and people are making bad decisions because of it. Like I have family members who've at least talked about moving out of the country, and part of you wants to go, okay, well, one less Democrat, but this is not healthy, folks. This is not healthy. And as I said, obviously I have no pity for Lori Pohutsky, but for Democrats, you do know, who are thinking these crazy thoughts, it's worth at least making the attempt to reach out to them and like, look, the world's not going to end. Trump actually was president for 4 years. Anyway, yeah, Heather says publicity stunts will be how Democrats stay relevant, which is not going to work. I mean, this publicity stunt has just completely, utterly backfired on her. Yeah, or like the other one, Phil Murphy, the Democrat in New Jersey. I think he's the governor or something. The guy, he says, he says, I've got an immigrant in my attic. I'm harboring an illegal alien. And Tom Homan, the border czar, goes, we're gonna look into that. We're gonna make sure. And no. Wait, I was just joking. I was just saying I was harboring an illegal immigrant for dramatic effect. And yeah, that did not go over well. That did not have the intended effect. I'm sure it did not. So let him keep doing it, guys. Let him keep doing it. Anyway, that's about all I've got for tonight. I do want to briefly talk about the state chair race, and I'm staying neutral on this because, well, first off, because I'm going to be hosting a state chair candidates forum in Ann Arbor in just 8 days from now. Actually, it is coming up. Let me put this up on the screen. Here we go. Washtenaw GOP Club, of which I am a co-founder, is having a little slightly outdated picture there of Scott Greenlee because he has dropped out, but the three candidates are competing for state chair. We have a forum coming up on President's Day, February 17th And I actually was one of 3 moderators of a state chair event in Canton this past Wednesday. So, and again, I don't want to weigh in too heavily on this race because I don't want to create an appearance of non-neutrality when my organization is hosting an event with all 3 of them. I will broadly say I see pluses and minuses in all 3 of the candidates. And I think we had a great event. And Patty, if you're in the chat, I'd love to hear what your thoughts were on it. But I did ask a lot of people. It was a great event too, by the way. It was like, I wouldn't say jam-packed, but it was a great turnout at the Imagine Theater in Canton. Lots of people came. And I think we were fair. I talked to a lot of people afterwards, and I asked them who they thought I was supporting, and they all said, we didn't know because you were so fair. So that was the intention. Patty says, we're excellent. Thank you, Patty. And we made a point to ask hard questions. And I will say there was one moment in the evening that stood out, and that was when Joe Sella actually kind of lost his temper at one of the moderators' questions. Jay Mashad, I'll touch on that. Jay was asking if we have a recording of the forum available. We do not, but anyway, I'll mention this in a moment. And there may be one coming up for the one in Ann Arbor next Monday. But we were asking hard questions. What we did was we had a round where we each gave the candidates equal time to answer the same question. And we did a kind of a round robin. So first we started with Jim Runstead, then we started with Michonne, then we started with Joe. And we did 6 questions. So each of them got to go first, each of them got to go last. And they all got the same question. Then we did an individual candidate questions. And we did, again, everyone got the same amount of time, same amount of questions. We did not let them play the game where candidates can attack each other back and forth and they get bonus time to respond to each other. We just said, you spend your 2 minutes answering the question however you want. If you want to answer what someone else said about you, go ahead and do it on your own time. Because we felt it was more important to give them all equal time than to let them respond back and forth to each thing they would say about each other. And they were throwing some jabs, but whatever. What do you expect? Yeah, Patty says we had awesome turnout, around 85 people. I think that'd be about right. Mark says he would be a delegate to the state convention. Excellent. Congratulations, Mark. But yeah, so the questions. So we asked each of them hard questions when we got to the individual candidate questions. Questions that there was like no easy answers to. Like, so Jim Runstead, I asked him the question, how are you possibly going to be able to be a state chair and still be a state senator? Which there's really no good answer to that question, honestly. I mean, Jim, did what he could to say, well, I'm going to, there's not much to do in the Senate because we're in the minority and we barely show up half the time, which is true enough. But I mean, the Democrats in Washington are in the minority. They're not going to just, they still have a lot of work-related obligations. I think a lot of delegates are going to be thinking, well, yeah, maybe you don't actually have to vote for a lot of hours in any given week, but you're still a state senator. You still have to do things for your constituents, and your constituents, Jim is at this moment in a district that's solidly conservative, but because of that stupid court decision, the boundaries are getting redrawn. It's going to be a tough district. And lawmakers often spend a lot of time working their district, and we don't want to lose the district. It's a swing district in a close Senate race. They were trying to take the majority back in. So that was a tough question for Jim Runstead. For Michonne Maddock, we asked her about some of the remarks she's made in the past on X, which are, there's, again, no answer for those. I mean, there's no good answer to that question because, yeah, that's going to be damaging to donors. Absolutely, Michonne is going to be someone that draws a lot of bad press out. There's no question about that. And then Joe Sella, actually, Matt Willick asked Joe Sella, and actually I got this question from watching when he was being interviewed by Scott McMahon, and Scott's like, how do you address the question that you're from Washington, you're an establishment guy? And he's like, well, he goes on to list all of his history, and he's like, well, I've been a campaign manager, I've worked in Lansing, I've worked in Washington, I've worked for the majority office, I've worked as a district director for a U.S. senator, I've started my own consulting company, and I've been a campaign man. I'm like, how is that not being an insider? So, which is a fair question. So Matt Wilk asked him this question, and he really blows up at him. Like, There's lots of ways you could answer that. First of all, I'm surprised you wouldn't have a canned answer for that question, because you would get that question everywhere. And, I can think of lots of ways to answer that question. Like, well, by that definition, isn't Ron Paul an insider? He was in Washington for 20 years. Rand Paul must be an insider. Mike Lee must be an insider. Trump must be an insider. He's in the White House. You could do it that way. He could even just, kept his cool and just said, yeah, well, if you've ever been in an office, and I know you have, Adam, you could have pointed at me because we were chatting earlier. He knew who I worked for in the past. That there's always a conservative wing in the staff, and there is an establishment wing in the staff, and I was in the conservative wing. There's all kinds of ways you can answer that question. But he got really mad at Matt just over that question. So anyway, I guess my point is, sparks can fly at these events, and Michonne said some things that it was funny because she actually said, I know this event's not being recorded, but someone I'm sure is recording this. But let me just say, and then she wanted to say something that she probably didn't want recorded, but whatever. That's how it goes in the real world, folks. So as for the event coming up, I actually got contacted from someone in Traverse City who was seeing about doing a forum on the same day we were. And one of the candidates told them that actually we're doing this thing in Ann Arbor instead. So then she called me and said, can you do a live stream? And okay, sure, why not? So the problem is, I don't want to do a live stream that's going to discourage people from coming to the live event in Ann Arbor. So I'm going to have to work out some way that you folks who are up north, or at least reasonably far away, like Jay, I think is in Mount Pleasant, can tune in such a way that it's not going. Maybe what we'll do is we'll do a contingency plan, which is this: if we sell 70 tickets to our event, which I think is the capacity, then we'll live stream. And if we don't, then we won't. Maybe that'd be an incentive to get some folks to buy tickets. I don't know. We'll figure something out. We will figure something out, but we will let you know closer to the date. Mark asks how I feel about the vice chair races. Again, I don't want to weigh in just yet because there is a candidate forum coming up, and at some point I'll probably say, who I support for these things. But I also must say, folks, I don't feel nearly as strongly about these races as I have in the past. The vice chairs, honestly, are just not very important, to tell you the truth. The candidates, we asked them, how are you going to use the vice chairs? And the truth is, we've been asking that question for decades now. The vice chairs are just, they're always an afterthought. Unfortunately, in the party apparatus, is just kind of the way it always goes. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be different this time. And as I said in the candidate forum, and I mean it, all of these candidates are actually qualified. They all have pluses, they all have minuses, they all have a different skill set, but none of them are completely unqualified, as were all of the candidates 2 years ago, except for Scott Greenlee. Every single one of those candidates was not qualified to be the state chair. Christina Karamo was not qualified. Matt Perna was not qualified. I forget who the others were. There's a lot of them. None of them were qualified at all. The only one who was Scott Greenlee. This year, all of them will at least be interesting choices, and I think all of them will be able to, and all of them will know what they're doing, at least, put it that way, and we'll have access to financial resources in some form. I still think some could be more successful than others, but I don't know. We'll talk more about that at some point. But for now, I hope my critique of the event the other night was fair. But we'll talk more at some point about how these things all go. So anyway, with that, I don't see any comments I've missed necessarily that are things I should need to put up. But so I guess maybe, one thing I didn't do, I didn't really make much of an announcement about this, but the Washtenaw Republican Club, which I should probably put the link up on the screen, is WashtenaWRepublicanClub.com, WashtenaWGOPClub.com. Those will both work. We have a new organization in Washtenaw County because the current party in its configuration now is controlled by a bunch of commie punks who aren't going to do anything for the county party, which is fine. We were focusing on winning the race for Trump, which is what we did. And meanwhile, the people who I've often called the tourists, the ones that don't actually do anything for the Republican Party, but like to preen and posture like they do have been busy organizing precinct delegates. Anyway, we're going to be a 501c4, which means we'll be able to, first of all, accept donations anonymously, which is enormously important in a county like Washtenaw County, where donors have to actually worry about being attacked by and deplatformed and have their jobs put under pressure from Democrats. But we got an awesome website here, WashtenaWGOPclub.com. You should join. And in addition to all the cool stuff here, we got an awesome store where you can buy our awesome Liberal Tears insulated tumbler with our awesome logo on it too. And lots of other cool stuff. So check it out, WashtenaWGOPclub.com. There you go. Yeah, Mark says I agree. They're all qualified, or at least interesting. They're all qualified. They're all qualified. They all have trade-offs, and that's just the way it goes. But yeah, we'll see. We shall see, folks. All right, that will do it for us for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. It has been a fun Super Bowl stream, and I'm sure we will have lots more to talk about in the next few weeks. And oh, one more thing, I forgot to mention this. I'm going to do an email about this tomorrow. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of very suspicious rumors from Lansing about these BS bills, the 85 bills the governor signed long after the new year, and the 9 bills that the Republicans have not sent to her, that perhaps the Republicans are planning to negotiate something with Gretchen Whitmer to give her the 9 bills and roll over and accept the 85 that she signed. This is something we need to sound the alarm on, and an alarm is going up very, very soon about this, because here's the thing, folks. It would be bad in any circumstance for the Republicans to be negotiating with the governor over these bills. But reportedly, what she's negotiating with them over is this tip credit and paid sick leave reform bill, which are bills that the Chamber of Commerce and the Restaurant Association have been lobbying the Republican Party intensely to push for. But the thing is, I mean, I'm not saying they're not good policy, but here's the thing. These bills are here because the Democrat-controlled partisan Supreme Court of the state of Michigan has nullified the laws the Republicans passed previously. So what's to stop the court from doing that again? If Matt Hall cuts some kind of deal with the Democrats, and then they give them these 9 bills, these 9 bad bills, and surrender on these 85 bills and create precedent that the Democrats can just, not send bills to the government in a timely basis and still have them become law. And then the Republicans get nothing because the Supreme Court of the state of Michigan strikes them down again anyway. Very bad, very bad. More on that to come very soon. All right, guys, that will do it for us for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. It has been a pleasure as always. Until next time, thanks for all you guys do for liberty. And until then, peace.